Roger McGuinn, the visionary guitarist and leader of the Byrds, has always been a figure shrouded in mystique. From pioneering the jangly 12-string Rickenbacker sound that defined an era to leading one of the most influential American rock bands of the 1960s, McGuinn's public persona was that of a genial, introspective musician devoted to craft. Yet behind the harmonies and chart-topping hits, a far more complex story unfolded, one that involved battles with the music industry, personal struggles, and moments that fans and historians rarely discuss. Born James Joseph McGuinn III on July 13, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois, he grew up immersed in music. His parents exposed him to folk and jazz records, and young Roger quickly gravitated toward the guitar. By high school, he was performing in local clubs, experimenting with the sounds that would later define his career. Yet even at this early stage, he displayed a singular determination. McGuinn wasn't just interested in playing music, he wanted to innovate. That drive would become both his greatest strength and a source of tension throughout his life. In the mid-1960s, McGuinn co-founded the Byrds alongside Gene Clark, David Crosby, Chris Hillman, and Michael Clarke. The band's breakthrough hit, a cover of Bob Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man, launched them into international fame. Overnight, McGuinn and his bandmates were symbols of the folk rock revolution, blending poetic lyrics with electrified guitars and harmonies that inspired a generation. Yet with fame came friction. Behind closed doors, McGuinn faced conflicts over creative direction, band leadership, and management pressures that were rarely visible to fans. One of the lesser-known episodes in McGuinn's life involved his struggle with the music industry's rigid structures. Unlike some of his contemporaries who embraced the pop machinery, McGuinn often pushed back against record label demands, insisting on artistic control over arrangements, production, and song selection. While this ensured the integrity of the Byrds' sound, it also created tension with producers and executives, who saw his insistence as difficult. Roger was never someone to compromise his vision for convenience, recalls a former producer. That dedication made him a legend, but it also burned bridges along the way. Personal struggles further complicated his story. McGuinn navigated the pressures of life on tour, constant public attention, and the challenge of maintaining relationships while traveling extensively. Though he eventually married and had a family, the early years were marked by isolation, fatigue, and the sense that his personal life was secondary to the band's meteoric rise. Friends and collaborators later noted that McGuinn could oscillate between warm camaraderie and intense focus, a duality that sometimes bewildered those closest to him. One particularly revealing episode involved a near collapse during the late 1960s, at the height of the Byrds' fame. Exhausted from relentless touring and recording, McGuinn experienced a period of deep introspection, questioning both his creative path and the personal costs of celebrity. According to insiders, he withdrew from public appearances for weeks, spending hours in his hotel room alone with his guitar and notebooks. That period of solitude, though difficult, catalyzed some of the band's most innovative compositions, including experimental arrangements that later became hallmarks of their sound. It was a moment that demonstrated the dual nature of McGuinn's genius. Isolation could be both a source of pain and a wellspring of creativity. McGuinn also grappled with shifting musical landscapes. By the early 1970s, rock music had evolved rapidly, and the Byrds faced declining chart success. McGuinn's commitment to innovation sometimes clashed with audience expectations, leaving him caught between staying true to his artistry and satisfying commercial pressures. This tension contributed to band departures, lineup changes, and a growing sense of responsibility on McGuinn's shoulders to keep the Byrds' legacy intact. Yet, despite these challenges, McGuinn's story is ultimately one of resilience. He navigated fame and industry politics with a blend of quiet determination and an unwavering dedication to his craft. In interviews later in life, he reflected candidly about the mistakes, tensions, and pressures that defined his career. He emphasized that creativity often comes with personal cost and that genius is rarely uncomplicated. "People hear the music, but they don't see the struggle behind it," he once said. Every note, every harmony carries a story of compromise, choice, and perseverance. Today, Roger McGuinn remains a revered figure in music history, not just for his technical skill or the hits he helped create, but for the complex, human story behind the legend. His journey, from a curious Chicago youth to the architect of a defining sound, through personal trials and industry battles, offers a nuanced perspective on fame, artistry, and the sacrifices inherent in pursuing a singular vision. In telling what really happened to McGuinn, fans gain insight not only into the men behind the guitar but also into the delicate balance between artistic integrity and the realities of life in the spotlight.